Welcome back. The college football rankings have been updated, and we're going to talk about them. I'm your host, Drew. My other host, right over there.
What's up? It's Dee. Good to see you. Before we dig into that, hit that like button. Be sure to subscribe. Drop some comments below. Let us know your thoughts.
And before we even talk about the rankings, a team is maybe not surprising, not on this list for the top 25. Florida State was number 10. They ain't there no more.
The biggest fall off, obviously, from this top 25 list. But I mean, you end week one with 2 losses. Crazy. That's crazy, little bro. We're doing tricks
I
on
mean,
it.
I knew Boston College was going to put up a fight, but they dominated that game. And DJ Uiagalelei, I believe that's how you pronounce his last name. Yeah, he's getting shit on bad. He's played terrible. But let's not act like the rest of that Florida State team has been awful. The offensive line, the receivers and tight end are dropping passes. The defense can't stop a run to save their life. Like, it's just a bad team.
Yeah, the D line that everyone thought was going to have like nothing but NFL talent and they're going to be a hard-nosed team. They're going to get after you. That's just not the case with Florida State. And I just don't, if you're Mike Norvell, like, yeah, you got screwed over last year. You should have been in the playoffs. You were undefeated. You go on, you get spanked by Georgia. You're like, okay, let's recoup. Let's make sure that we get after this next year. We go out and we get a pretty big name in the transfer portal to play quarterback for us. You probably spend a boatload of money at it. And then you
Probably should
go
have
out
benched it.
and you just get dog walked. Like you lose a close game to Georgia Tech, and then the next week, Boston College just makes you look silly. It is insane what they did. They basically just ran a mesh concept. I'm sure you've heard other people talk about it, but I heard one guy was explaining it. He was like, I think what it did was one contributing factor was the fact that they have comms in the helmets now. This is like the first year that they're doing this, and that Bill O'Brien and the offensive coordinator both had experience in the NFL, so they know exactly how to use it. And they were picking apart that defense because they were able to communicate what they were seeing on the field. And so I think that played a big part on it. But I mean, you're done for the season. Like that's it. You lose to Georgia Tech, who's now ranked. You lose to Boston College, who's nowhere near ranked. I, yeah, you're
Boston
just
College
done.
looked great though. Like
Yeah,
Billy O
I
really coached
mean,
that team.
their quarterback is very athletic, and you've seen that he's not going to put up like doesn't have a strong arm. He doesn't have that threat to like really take it downfield, but he's going to dink and dunk and be athletic and make plays on the fringe. And it
That
was more
quarterback
than
counter play, the quarterback counter option pass or run is probably the most dominant play I've seen in the past 2 weeks because they didn't even start doing it till they were blowing out Florida State. But once they, fake the handoff, or maybe that's a read option right there. He runs out, and you have someone mesh concept coming across, and he could either dump it off or run up the field for 20 yards. And Florida State just had no idea how to cover that. They were nowhere close. They're at the end of the game to kind of close it out. They're just trying to run the ball to get the clock down. Twice he breaks for like 15, 20 yards run, and no one's near him. So, I mean,
just embarrassing. Just
the
embarrassing,
concepts,
dude.
the concepts compared to Florida State's concepts are just levels above. So Florida State needs to, I don't know what, clean house at this point. The season's over.
Yeah,
If you wanna see someone really go off on Florida State, Paul Feinbaum on ESPN just ripped that. He's like, I don't see them getting another win this year. He's like, they're gonna struggle against Memphis. They're gonna. I don't see them winning a game. Like he just went off on them. So that's a good watch. But let's get back to the ranked teams now.
Oh, hold on. Before we leave Florida State, like if you are Florida State and Florida, you are so in your feelings. Miami runs the state of Florida now. That is the premier football destination right now. They have moved up 7 spots. They have a Heisman candidate in Cam Ward. You are feeling good if you are a Miami fan. You've had to put up with Florida State's bullshit. You've had to put up with Florida with their thing, and now like you've had this like pump fake where like is Miami back? No, not really. But Miami is all the way back. They are now at the number 12 spot. I feel like they're just going to keep racking up wins, and it's only up here for Miami.
And Florida might fire their coach in the next few weeks because he went back at fans. Did you see that?
But it's like, who is going to take that job? You have a murderer's row of your schedule. Who is going to want to step into that and risk the rest of their coaching career? I think that Billy Napier is going to have to stay there. Like you
Deion
made this bed.
Sanders,
You've made
Coach
this bed.
Prime.
I know. Did you see that Florida State fans were calling for Coach Prime? They're like, well, at least Deion's a dog. At least Deion wouldn't have us in this situation.
Bro, he would have you in a worse situation. They're at Colorado losing 8 games a year.
But he wouldn't have us in this situation.
Yeah, because you wouldn't be in the top 10. You
But I
wouldn't be
think Mike Norvell had you undefeated last year. I think you stick with it. You maybe eventually, not this year, maybe next after, if there's a bad season next year, you part ways with him. But I don't think you panic. I don't think you hit that eject button
Do
on
you
him as a coach.
bench DJU?
There's not a premier guy behind him. Like there's not. I
They
don't
got a
think they
freshman
have
they're kinda
talent.
excited about.
Yeah, they were excited just because they wanted someone else. Like, you know what I mean? I don't think there's a whole lot of options there. So I think you have to. You brought this guy in. You have to play him, and it's not
You
like
paid him.
It was. It's not just him. It's the whole team played like dog poop.
All right, well, let's get to these rankings. Georgia, of course, at top. Ohio State, Texas, Bama, Notre Dame, Ole Miss. That's kind of been the consensus top 6, I think, from fair enough to say for everyone's board.
Do you think Old Miss and Notre Dame should have flipped? I know I've seen some people were saying that, like, okay, Old Miss just put up 1,000. Notre Dame barely beat Texas A&M, who many feel like just didn't have a quarterback. Should they have flipped?
I don't know because I feel like Texas A&M look like they're gonna have a good team this year. And Ole Miss, they're kind of like you got to prove it to me a little bit more. Like, yeah, you've had some decent teams in recent years, but you haven't had a top 4 team in recent years. So I kind
Yeah,
of want to
that's
see you
true.
across a few more games. So I'm okay with it. Notre Dame carries that name recognition a little bit more. I'm fine.
And
Oregon,
it was a hostile environment. You went
yeah,
into Kyle Field, 107,000 student or people in that stadium going crazy. You get a win. I think it was one of the biggest wins. Yeah.
yeah. Oregon drops 4 spots to number 7 despite beating Idaho. They struggled though. They struggled and they didn't look great. I know you were really down on them after that.
Yeah, again, I think this isn't the Pac-12. I think you're going to have a tougher schedule moving forward. I know Dan Lanning himself was pissed. I mean, I don't see how it translated that Dylan Gabriel throws for almost 400 yards and you still only win by 10 against the Idaho Vandals. So, yeah, I'm fine. I'm really glad that the committee has now knocked them down and not every win counts the same. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm cool with that. I feel like Penn State, again, I like Penn State. I thought they went into a hostile environment. They got a really good win. Drew Aller has put himself on the map as a guy who can play. I mean, I think we've seen him last year not really want to take chances or do things. I think he looked amazing against West Virginia. I'd be fine with them flip-flopping, but it's cool the way it is.
And I want to touch back Oregon. I know you said it's not the Pac-12 anymore. Is the Pac-12, really quick, the best conference in college football because they are the only undefeated conference. The Pac-2 went 2-0 in the first week. So, SEC, look out. Pac-2 is on its way. It's Oregon State, Washington State, right?
Yes.
They're undefeated. So
That's good.
back to the real teams that matter. Then we got Penn State and Missouri and Michigan dropping 1 spot. I thought Michigan, yeah, they deserve to drop, and even if they went lower, because I think Tennessee and Miami are way too low on this list. Michigan, if you take away the last like 4 minutes of that game, they're in a dogfight with Fresno State, no pun intended. The Bulldogs were way too close in that game against Michigan.
Yeah. I'm not very high on Michigan this year. I just think that you
They
lose your
don't have their
veteran
sign stealer.
quarterback, you lose your Stein Stealer. Have you watched that doc yet, by the way?
Yeah, it's actually pretty good.
Ugh, I haven't seen it, but I'll have to check it out. You lose your head coach. Sharon Moore has already been thrown as the scapegoat for this. He is going to get a punishment at some point. I just feel like there's going to be a whole lot of distractions this entire season. How can you bounce back? And even then, even if you didn't have all of that, there is usually a hangover from a national title. So I'm just not very high on Michigan. I think we'll see them have a couple of losses, maybe 2 or 3 at
Yeah, I'd even go 4 with how I saw them play. But then Utah's 11, cool. But 12 through 15 is really interesting because we have Miami, USC, Tennessee, and Oklahoma. USC moves up 10 spots. Miami moves up 7. Uh, which one of those 4 kind of stand out to you as like real contenders?
actually, I mean, I like all of them. I mean, realistically, the only one that I don't really like is Oklahoma. I think that them in the SEC is going to be not great for them. I think Tennessee has a really good quarterback. They have a high volume offense. I think they have, because they are in the SEC, it's going to be a tough schedule. I think USC, if they can continue to hold people to 20 or less, they have the offense. Miller Moss looks great at quarterback for them. And if this defense can continue to step up, they will put up points. We know Lincoln Riley will do that. And so they go out there and they get a tough, gritty win against LSU. And I think their stock is high. I feel really good about that. I think that they are going to be a borderline playoff team. Like, it's going to be on the fringe. I don't think they're going to win the Big Ten. But I think Miami is probably the S tier of those, because Miami can easily win the ACC. Miami would then get a bye, and so that makes them real sneaky to be able to make a deep push in this, despite them only being ranked number 12.
Yeah, I think for sure. I think Miami, you could lock it in now. They're going to have a first round bye. I think they're winning the ACC. Their schedule is probably the easiest schedule I've seen this year. If you told me USC, Tennessee, and Oklahoma is 10, 11, 12 in the playoff, like I'd be like, that's kind of a murderer's row, bottom half of the playoff.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't want to be, a 6 seed going against one of these guys. But that's why this year's gonna be fun, because now you're looking at all the talent across the board, 12 teams. It's not like you're getting UCF and or Appalachian State in this game. Like, you're getting a real team.
But it's going to be really interesting when we start to have conference play, because if you're looking like this conference play is really going to shake up some of these things. Like, the Big 12 right now is represented in this top 25. You see OK State, Kansas State, Utah. Realistically, I don't see the Big 12 having multiple teams in the playoff. I think that Kansas is on here. The ACC has multiple teams, the last 4 teams in the top 25. I think that it's going to start to shake out, and it's going to be really interesting down the stretch, because all of the games are going to matter this year. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, and just rounding out the list, like you said, at the end here, we got 4 ACC teams. 22 is Louisville. Then we got Georgia Tech, NC State, and Clemson. The ACC's, I mean, I don't think they're on the same level as the SEC talent-wise, but they're making a push for that, like, the teens to the 20s. It could be ruled by the ACC, if that's anything to brag about.
I mean, the Big 12 is making its case for like ruling the teens. I mean, look at OK State, Kansas, Arizona. That's pretty good. And Arizona has a guy at receiver. Do you see that dude?
Yeah.
Man, McMillan, he had over 300 yards, I think. He had some crazy I gotta look it up. I'm talking out my ass right now because
But
that
yeah,
is unreal.
that's gonna
Arizona.
be interesting conference battle because I think I don't know. Looking at some of these ACC teams, I kind of would take them over a few of these Big Ten, a few of these Big 12 teams.
The biggest
So,
overreaction is ranking. Yeah, he had 300 yards. So he had 300 yards
and we're
and
talking
4
about Travis
touchdowns.
Hunter instead of him.
Yeah, that's insane. Yikes. That's crazy. But biggest overreaction is Georgia Tech being ranked. I get that they got another win after the Florida State win in week 0, but come on, like we seen Boston College beat Florida State by a higher margin. So are we going to mark now Boston College in the top 25 if they get another win? That's kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, Florida State being just terrible might be the worst thing for Boston College because it doesn't really give them like that sweet of a win on their schedule anymore. Georgia Tech, I want to see this Syracuse Georgia Tech line because Syracuse I think could beat Georgia Tech. Like that could be an upset right there. They have a guy at quarterback.
Yeah, they do. And NC State taking on Tennessee this week. That's
Yeah.
going to be a good game. I think Tennessee blows them out, dude. I think that NC State does not have the horses to keep up with Tennessee. I think that they put them back in their place, and it looks bad.
Yeah, Texas and Michigan this week. Who do you got?
Horns up. I got Texas, baby.
I'm sorry.
No way. You think Texas is losing to Michigan?
No, I just wanted to piss off Matthew McConaughey. I got Texas in that game. Yeah, come on. They're gonna blow him out, and then Arch Manning's gonna come out and throw 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter. Clemson versus Appalachian State, another sneaky one. I know Appalachian State, but they've put together a good squad year in year out, and I'm kind of nervous for this Clemson team going on a downward spiral with Roddy White saying that there's too many white players on the fields. Actually, I watched Marcellus Wiley do a really good video on this, where he's like talking about basically people thinking that in the media, but not saying it explicitly, saying it in different ways. And he
Yeah.
like breaks down Booger McFarland talking about it like they need to get creative on offense. They need explosive players. They need this. And so it's a really good video. Just type in Marcellus Wiley talking about uh, too
Clemson.
many white players on Clemson.
Yeah, man. And so I think it's going to open up. I think eventually Dabo is going to have to make that change. We'll see.
Or leave.
Yeah. But I mean, he has basically a lifetime contract. I would love to know what his like buyout is currently, but I think that him having the status he has, you can't really kick him out. You know what I mean?
If you don't want to recruit, if you don't want to do transfer, you should just go coach Army or Air Force.
That's true.
Dominate those.
Any
All right.
other
I think
anything else that stands out for you?
I think that's everything for today.
All right, sounds good. Take it easy. Be sure to hit that like button. Be sure to subscribe. Drop some comments below. Let us know what you're looking at with this AP Top 25.
See you.
Later.